600 wins, 6 Georgia State championships, 16 regional championships, 2-time National Coach of the Year, first team from Georgia to win the City of Palms Classic, the nation's #1 high school tournament, first team in Georgia history to attend the Dick's Sporting Goods National Tournament of Championships. He's produced numerous NBA players and professional basketball players all over the world. It's real basketball talk. It's real help and real life with Coach Doug Lipscomb on the BG Podcast Network.
Merry Christmas and welcome to Real Life Basketball. No, we're not here on Christmas Day. No, we're not here on Christmas Eve. We're about a week ahead, not a week ahead, a couple days ahead, Coach, and we're here talking basketball. This show will get released right around there. And we got to have holidays too, don't we, Coach?
Yes, we do, and I'm going to go ahead and say Merry Christmas before it gets here.
Before it gets here. Hey, Merry Christmas, Cody. You got the ugliest Christmas sweater in the world on right now.
Right, but it's comfortable, it's warm.
Cody comes in here every week with an old ragged out Nashville Predators hat and an old ugly Christmas sweater. Hey, folks, you're listening to Real Life Basketball with your host, Darren Sutherland, and the legendary high school coach, Wheeler High School coach Doug Lipscomb. And thank you once again for listening. And thank you to our sponsors, Carriage Automotive Group, for making all this possible. And, Coach, let's just get right to it. It's Christmas Day. The NBA is one of their biggest days of the year. They start at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. And let's just go ahead with our picks. We'll do a little round table here and see who's going to come out and win and why real quick. But we'll make this all real quick. First game, the Philadelphia 76ers against the New York Knicks. The rivalry ain't what it used to be, but it's still Philly against New York. Coach, what you got? What you thinking?
I like New York all the way.
You like New York. Cody, what you got?
I like Philly. They may not be the flashiest team or, the most consistent, but I like Ben Simmons. I like Joel Embiid. I'm gonna go Philly on this one.
I like the big foreign kid. What's his name? Porzingis. Man, don't y'all love having my southern accent and I just bring up Porzingis? I mean, I like him. He's gonna be phenomenal for the Knicks. Can you imagine what New York City's ever gonna be like if they ever win a world championship? What the Knicks will be like?
Well, they say it's going to be bananas.
It will be like when the Cubs won the World Series. You heard?
Worse. It'd be so much worse there.
That's what I'm thinking.
New York's crazy.
You think LeBron's going to leave Cleveland and go to New York? No. Got to throw that out there. You think
he's going west?
He's going to the Lakers? Yeah. Where's he going, Coach?
Well, he won't be with Golden State.
No. Where's he going, Coach? Go ahead. I'm going to put you on the record right now. Where's he going?
Well, I think he's going to go where he can get some more people to come with him.
So where's he going?
I can't tell you that right now.
He ain't going to Utah. Okay,
No.
We know that.
No, too cold.
He's too cold. He ain't going to Phoenix. We know that. Is he going to Lakers or the Clippers? If he's going west, you done narrowed it down. He ain't going to Golden State. Seattle don't have a team no more. Ain't nobody going to Portland unless they just want to waste some time.
Well, I know. I think he may be leaning toward L.A.
L.A. See,
about a $12 million house out there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he's had a house out there for years.
Don't y'all love how I just throw this stuff in there and don't tell you I'm going to ask you? Hey, let's go to the next game. It's talking about LeBron, the big marquee name of the game. No, we'll come back to that. That's the marquee game. Yeah, we'll come back to that. How about the Washington Bullet Wizards against the Boston Celtics and your kid Jaylen Brown? Coach, who you got?
I'm going all the way with Boston. I might even get me a green shirt on that day.
You might wear a green shirt. You got to. Your player, Jaylen Brown. Jack Cody, what you got?
I'm going to go Boston on this one as well. It's tough, though, but I like Boston.
You know what? I like Bradley Beal. I like John Wall. I like Washington. And you know what? Washington, I'm not going to go with Washington. I'm going with Boston because I've always been a Celtics fan because I've always been a Larry Bird man. Larry Bird had the greatest steal in the history of the NBA. Would you agree with that, Coach?
I was one of the best.
Yeah.
When that inbound pass that Isaiah Thomas threw in there made Isaiah one of the greatest point guards in the history of the game look like me out there playing. Did it not, Coach?
Well, we're not going to comment on that right
Why
now.
not? Isaiah loves for people to talk about him. You know, he's still mad because he didn't make the Olympic team. Do you realize that?
Bobby Knight was involved with that, right?
Well, no, Bobby Knight was Isaiah's man. Bobby Knight coached Isaiah at Indiana. It was Chuck. Was it Chuck? No. What it was when Michael Jordan told him he wasn't playing on the team if they took Isaiah Thomas. And Chuck Daly was their coach, I think. Was he not?
Hey, I'd take Mike too.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think
Would
in
you took Isaiah Thomas or John Stockton as your point guard?
John Stockton.
John
Best
Stockton.
point guard the game's ever seen.
Ooh.
What do you think, Coach? John Stockton, Isaiah Thomas.
Did he say greatest?
That's what he said. That's what he just said. That's what he just
Who
said.
leads the NBA in assists all time? What is a point guard's job?
That's just because him and Karl Malone sat there and run pick and roll because he didn't have the two players all day long. That's all he did.
Yeah.
They just played pick and roll all day long.
It don't matter why.
And I thought Magic played a little point guard too.
Magic
right?
played a little point guard too. That's what I thought. But
He can also play all other positions on the court. So
let's just face it. That's a big statement, Cody, that he's the best of all time. So anyway, so we all three going with Boston. Houston at OK City. James Harden against Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, and the boys. Who you got? Houston. Big James Harden fan. Chris Paul. What you got, Cody?
Not even close. Houston.
Houston. Loves Houston. You know what? If I was starting a team tomorrow and I couldn't get a big, okay? If I couldn't get a big, meaning a big 6'10" or big guy to go to the middle, first player I'd take is Russell Westbrook. I ain't going to lie to you. So I got to go with OKC. I think Kevin Durant messed up leaving Oklahoma City and going to Golden State. I think he could have been an all-time legend staying in OKC. Now he's just going to be one of the players in Golden State.
Let me ask you a little history.
Yeah.
Who did Kevin Garnett play for?
Kevin Garnett played for Minnesota Timberwolves.
Okay.
He played for the Boston Celtics. Then he went to New Jersey, and then he went back to Minnesota to finish it out.
Okay.
And it was Brooklyn, not New Jersey, because they had already moved.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, Durant played for a team before, too. Who was he with?
Kevin Durant played for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Right.
That's what I know. That's what I said.
Yeah. Kevin, okay, now I want to
Did
talk
I
to
say
you about...
Garnett earlier?
Hold up, yeah, hold
Okay.
on. Now, let's talk about James Harden. Where did he come from?
He came from the Thunder also. One of the worst trades in the history of the NBA.
You had all three of them on the same team.
All three of them on the same team, and they didn't win it.
Okay.
Kevin Durant did what was best for him.
You think?
Yeah. They couldn't win in OKC.
They could have won with Durant. They could have won. What do you think?
They had a chance.
If they would have went out and got him a big body like Gore-Tex or somebody like that, just one of them big old guys to fill up the middle, they could have.
Last 7-foot centers in the game. Kendrick Perkins.
Okay, so he's still...
Kendrick Perkins he couldn't do nothing, but he couldn't even jump.
He got a ring. Kendrick Perkins was a fantastic center. He was one of the last.
How many rings did the old kid from Alabama get to play for Chicago and the Lakers and then Houston? What's his name? Then he played for the Spurs. What's his name? It's escaping me right now.
The shooter, Robert Ory.
Yeah, Robert Orr. How many rings he get, Coach?
About 7 or 8, wasn't it?
Shit, he got 10. He got about 10. He got all them. Look it up, Cody, when we keep talking about this. But I don't know how we got to Robert Ory. But just because you get a ring don't mean you're the best of all time. But I think Robert Ory. No, it means you're at the right place at the right time. Because Robert Ory get how many rings? 7 rings. Got a ring with the Bulls. Got a ring with the Lakers.
He did not get one with the Bulls. He never played for the Bulls.
Houston.
He did get a ring with the Bulls.
He never played for the Bulls. It's impossible.
His brother did, got one.
No.
His brother played for the Bulls.
Houston, Phoenix, the Lakers, and the Spurs.
He got a ring with all those.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get a ring.
Phoenix.
He didn't get a ring with Phoenix. Yeah. I could have swore Robert Ory.
He won back-to-back in Houston, 3 in a row.
Didn't he
in
have a
LA.
brother that played in the NBA?
I don't think he did. Then he won.
Played at Alabama with Latrell Sprewell. I remember that.
Yeah, he did. He won 3 in a row in LA, and then 2 in San Antonio.
Lord, we got to move on with Minnesota at the Lakers. I thought Minnesota would be a lot better this year.
Well, I'm going with Minnesota in this game.
I thought Minnesota would be a lot better.
I think they got to learn to play together, but I like what they're doing up there. I think getting rid of Zach LaVine may have been the wrong thing, but I guess when you bring a guy like Jimmy
if I was
Butler
an
in,
NBA player, there's 3 cities I wouldn't want to play in. 4 cities I wouldn't want to play in. You know where they are? And we got to get on the transfers. But you know what 4 cities? I wouldn't want to play in Utah. I wouldn't want to play in Memphis. I wouldn't want to play in Milwaukee. And I wouldn't want to play in Memphis. And I may even throw Atlanta in there.
2 times, yeah,
I
did.
I know.
Yeah.
Hold on, I wouldn't want to go.
Damn.
Speaking of that guy Memphis, we got a great interview coming up with our buddy John Varlas, high school editor for the Memphis Commercial Appeal. Don't tell him I was talking bad about Memphis like that when we get on the phone. You hear me? Because I'm gonna butter him up and tell him how much I love Tubby Smith. Is that all right with you, Coach?
Yes.
All right. Let's go to the Carriage Automotive Group line with John Varlas. And on the Carriage Automotive Group Skype line, we're going to Memphis, Tennessee, home of Elvis Presley and the Blues, but high school basketball may be king over the Grizzlies up there, and we're going to interview the high school sports writer for the Memphis Commercial Appeal, John Varlas. John, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me, Darian. Really appreciate you, buddy.
No problem. Say hello to the legend, Coach Doug Lipscomb from Wheeler High School. Coach, you've had some kids go up there to Memphis and play, hadn't you?
Oh, yeah. Good morning.
One or two?
Yeah.
One or two. Okay. John, before we go any further, I got to tell you this, okay? Number one, there's three things I want from Memphis, Tennessee, all right? I want some real Gus's fried chicken, all righty? That's number one. Number two, I want you to send us some barbecue because Memphis barbecue is the best. And number three, since we're talking basketball, I want you to send Tubby Smith back to my Georgia Bulldogs so we can start being competitive in the SEC again. Will you do that for me?
Well, I tell you what, man, it warms my heart to there's somebody that actually appreciates Coach Smith, because there's a segment of the fan base here that really doesn't right now, and it's an interesting situation because they're winning games and they're doing it with a team that has 10 new players, 10 totally different players from last year's team. But yeah, he's still coming in for some criticism because he's not been able to recruit the local talent so far. So it's interesting. That's a whole different topic, though. But I'm glad to hear you guys appreciate Coach Smith. I really am.
Tubby Smith, one of the most underappreciated college coaches in America, done a great job at Georgia, done a great job at Kentucky. The folks with unrealistic expectations. I could do a whole show on that, but we'll just keep it. But we're here today because we want to talk to you about the number one high school team in America, Memphis East, and Coach Anthony Hardaway and what's going on up there at Memphis East. And John, we like to keep it real. We tell everybody, we talk about basketball like I'm sitting on the front porch and the coach is in the gym or at the barber shop talking about it. Just tell our listeners here at Real Life Basketball what's going on right now between Memphis East and the Tennessee High School Association, because there's quite a battle that a lot of folks in America don't even know about. So what's going on?
Yeah, there is, and I'll walk you through it. And please jump in with any questions you have, and the legal stuff. I'm not the best at, but I'll walk you through it as best as I can. This situation came about at the start of the year with two players who transferred to Memphis East. Ryan Boyce, who played at Houston High School in Germantown, which is a suburb of Memphis, and of course James Wiseman, who's the top recruit in the class of 2019, played for Nashville Innsworth. Both of those kids transferred in from East over the summer, and with the intention of playing for the team this year. The rule that initially ruled them ineligible is what the TSSAA refers to as a prior link rule, a prior coaching link rule. It has several parts which constitute a link, but the part that the TSSAA questions the transfer of these two students to East is that they say these two guys, these two guys, Ryan and James, played for Team Penny over the summer on the EYBL circuit. They played for Team Penny. So they transfer to East, which is coached by Penny Hardaway, and the TSSAA steps in and says, okay, that's a coaching link because, obviously Team Penny is sponsored by Team Penny. They're going to East, which is coached by Penny Hardaway. So there's a prior link there. East has thus far been able to go to court and successfully argue that it's not a coaching link because Penny Hardaway didn't actually coach Team Penny. He just sponsored Team Penny. And then they were able to prove that actually he didn't sponsor it at all, that Nike sponsored Team Penny. So where we're at now is these guys are playing under an injunction. The injunction was extended in court last week. I was at the hearing. The injunction was extended. It's been extended indefinitely until the two parties can get together to meet for another hearing, at which point they will hear from witnesses. They will, hear actual testimony as to whether, they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing at East. And then I think they'll probably have a final decision for now. But as of right now, the guys, Ryan and James, are eligible to play, through the injunction. They were on TV last week against Webster Groves on ESPN. They're going to play at the City of Palms, and I think one other tournament later in the season, national tournament. So that's where we are. But the fight. Nothing has been settled yet. The boys are allowed to play, through this injunction, through this restraining order, whatever you want to call it. But going forward, there's still the final outcome of the case to be resolved. Whether there's a prior coaching link or not. So,
well, I feel like they should play, and the reason I'm going to say that is simply because if a Mount Verde or St. Anthony's or Oak Hill can see kids in the summer and say, we'd like for you to move to our campus and relocate here, and they'd be eligible to play. So there's no difference in those kids saying, let's move in the area of East, wherever that district is, and they play for the school that Penny is associated with.
If I understand go ahead.
No, I hear what you're saying, Coach. The question is, there wouldn't have been an issue. There wouldn't have been an issue if Ryan Boyce and James Wiseman had moved into Memphis and played at any other school in the city of Memphis. The only problem is they moved in to play for the school that's coached by the same guy that sponsors their AAU team, and that's where the problem arises.
What do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen, John?
It's interesting. It's really interesting. I don't know. I honestly didn't think they would, be allowed to continue playing this long. To be honest with you, the rules in the TSSAA rulebook are pretty clearly written. I think you can kind of draw a link between. You can see that there was maybe a prior link established, but to this point, the judge has not seen it that way. I don't know what's going to happen. We had some witnesses in court last week that weren't called in to testify. What happened last week was the judge basically just it wasn't a hearing to determine the rights and the wrongs of the case. It was just a hearing to determine whether the judge had the authority to extend the restraining order, and ultimately, it was decided that he did. So we still haven't heard the legalities of the case, the nuts and bolts. We haven't heard from witnesses. We haven't heard evidence. We haven't heard anything like that. So I really don't know how it's going to go. I don't know what evidence the TSSAA has, in its favor. I don't know what evidence East has in its defense. So that's going to be real interesting when that all comes out. And as of today, they haven't set a date. For the next hearing. Both sides have to get together and do that. And obviously, it'll be after the holiday sometime. But it's going to be real interesting. I don't know. I really don't know how it's going to go.
Let me ask you this, John. We know lawyers ain't cheap, okay? And I'm sure the guys fighting for Memphis East aren't these $125 an hour guys. They got to be the $400 an hour guys. Who's funding this fight for Memphis East? Who's paying these lawyers for these kids? Who's funding this whole thing?
Well, and you're right about the lawyers too. I saw them last week, and they had really nice sport coats. All these guys. So Shelby County Schools, the school system is the one going to bat for East in this case, and that's caused a lot of kind of friction or whatever with other people that say, okay, well, why are you doing this for Memphis East and you wouldn't do it for our school? There's some people in the community that say that, and that's a fair question too. Why is Shelby County Schools invested so much in this case? But yeah, they're the ones that are going to bat for East. Yeah, these lawyers are not cheap. The TSSAA is, they're lawyered up as well, and it's my sense that they're going to battle it out to the end, and it's also my sense that East is going to battle it out to the end. So this thing could drag on through throughout the whole season, really, and maybe beyond. Who knows how long it's going to take before it's eventually settled once and for all.
Well, the thing that I like about the whole situation is that East has always been somewhat criticized about where they're located and the surrounding area. And I'm glad to see something positive is trying to be done there. And so, like, to me, I'm happy that the board is supporting them, because you know how hard it is to try and get off from under a negative light. And I think this is positive to the fact that they want to help their own. Because I've seen things that are put up like one team, one Memphis, and that's good. I really do think it's good.
Yeah, it is, and East is, and you're right, Coach. East is not in the greatest neighborhood. It's a school that has really seen a lot of decline in enrollment in the last several years. I mean, if you look at it, strictly based on enrollment, East should be playing in the smallest basketball classification, strictly on the numbers, but they play in the largest classification. Partly due to rivalries, partly due to partly due to their tradition, and just partly due to the strength of the program they have year in and year out. I mean, this is a team that's won more state championships than anybody in Memphis. They've won 7 state championships. They've won state championships in every decade, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. They won the last 2 state titles, and this team they have. I mean, if you guys saw them on TV last week, this is a really, really good high school basketball team. And with Boyce and Wiseman, it's a situation where could they win the state title without them? Yeah, probably so. But adding those 2 guys, puts them in contention with the national powers. The prep schools, the Montverdis, and all these people. So.
We were talking on the Carriage Automotive Group line with Memphis Commercial Appeal high school sports writer John Varlas, and we're talking about Memphis East, the number 1 nationally ranked team in America. It is a public school, not a private school like so many, ranked in the top 20. They are number 1 in the nation with some great players like James Wiserman and more. How many, couple of questions for you, Coach. How many Division I recruits are playing for Memphis East right now?
All of them. I mean, right. I mean, we know Wiseman. I mean, we know Wiseman. Ryan Boyce has already signed with UAB. Alex Lomax, the point guard, 2-time Mr. Basketball winner. He's already signed with Wichita State. Then you have Chandler Lawson, who's a junior. He's the 3rd brother of KJ and Dedrick Lawson, who are at Kansas now. He's nationally ranked in the junior class. Then you have his younger brother, Jonathan Lawson, who's a freshman. He's nationally ranked in the freshman class. And then they got a kid named Malcolm Dandridge, who's about 6'8", 6'9", and he's a Division I prospect. I mean, he's going to play somewhere big. So that's 6 guys, and and who knows what else they have on the bench. I mean, they've got guys on the bench, obviously, they can play at lower level schools, but those are the big 6 right there. I mean, all 6 of those guys I just mentioned are going to play, high major basketball by the time they get there.
I've got to ask this question for every high school basketball coach listening in America, okay? Because we've got tons of high school coaches listening all across the country to our show. What classes are Penny Hardaway teaching during the day there at Memphis East, Coach? Or is he teaching any classes at all? Because Doug just sitting there laughing when I asked the question. But is he actually, I know he's coaching the team, but is he actually teaching classes at Memphis East?
No, he's not. And in fairness, there are, several other coaches at other schools in various sports that don't teach classes either. I mean, they changed that rule, and they changed that rule in the last few years to where if they don't have to teach classes, and that's not the problem. I mean, that's not the problem with this case. The problem is
what would you say? Because anybody that knows anything about basketball knows Memphis is a hotbed for basketball. Okay, AAU, high school, and otherwise. Memphis East playing at City of Palms, playing on national TV. What is the economic impact of Memphis East basketball just on that school alone?
Good question. It's hard to judge the economic impact. I think probably the more positive thing they get from it is like Coach Doug was saying a few minutes ago, positive positive publicity for the school. I mean, these kids, when they go to these tournaments, and I'll say this for these kids, top to bottom, the guys on the East team are great kids. They're great young men. They're great students. They're well spoken. They're a class act. I mean, when they go to these tournaments, when they go to the state tournament, they're a class act. When they see you, they'll shake your hand, ask you how you're doing. They're good kids. They're just good kids who also happen to be really good basketball players. So when these kids go out and play and travel the country and do this and that with East, I mean, it just reflects well on the school. It reflects well on East. It reflects well on the administration and the principal, the academics. I mean, it reflects well on everybody. And of course, it reflects well on basketball because they're carrying that standard. But these are really good kids, and that's what I think gets caught up in it. I mean, they're doing a great job with the kids and the team and everything pertaining to that.
And see, I love hearing that, because what you have there is a network that is committed to making these kids the best that they can possibly be. And when I say network, I mean like you would have the business people involved, you have the former pro player involved, his AAU program taking care of them in the summer, and then they come back to school and they need to be qualifying for college. See, that's the key.
Yeah.
If those kids are qualifying for college, then that's a win-win situation for the community and the kids. My biggest thing is, a pet peeve is that if I have something positive going on, I need the spotlight shine on that, because if you notice, and I'm going to keep it 100 with you, hell, the first 48 came out of Memphis, So, that was not positive to me whatsoever. So then you look at the fact that if you turn on the news itself, nothing but bad stuff. So this is something that they can turn on the news and see somebody doing something good in that neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely, Coach. I mean, and that's the good thing, and that's what I think we don't want to overlook in this, regardless of how the eligibility question plays out. I mean, Penny told me at one point, he said, "Hey, I'm running this like a college program. We hold these guys accountable. We want them to be, we want them to be accountable in the classroom. We want them to, we want them to be, we want them to be good with the media. We want them to be articulate. We want them to, we want them to do all the good things that that a good college program wants their student athletes to do, and they're doing it. I mean, it's from a basketball standpoint and from an educational standpoint. I really think they're being served pretty well. Like I said, regardless of how the eligibility thing plays out, they're doing a good job with the team.
And John, let me say this, and correct me if I'm wrong. Wasserman, the big kid that transferred from Nashville, made the statement on ESPN that the academics were actually harder at the school he came from in Nashville, but he transferred over to Memphis East. But he felt like his academics were already in order because he was an A and B student in Nashville, and he actually came to East to improve his basketball skills because he's the number one player in the country and more than likely a one-and-done or even a lottery pick when he comes out of high school. Am I correct in saying that? This is a kid that speaks Mandarin Chinese at 16 years old. I'm correct?
Yeah, I don't know how many languages James is fluent in, but you're right. I mean, Innsworth is a pretty snazzy private school. I mean, they got a lot of money up at Innsworth. They make some of the private schools in Memphis, look kind of tame by comparison with their facilities and all that. I mean, yeah, Innsworth is a really good school, and I'm sure James's academics are in order. I mean, Ryan's academics were in really good shape too. I mean, he'd already qualified. He already received the necessary ACT qualifying score, before he even got to East. So yeah, academics isn't a problem with either one of these guys. I think you're right. It was more the basketball opportunities and a chance to improve, a chance to get some exposure. East is playing in these tournaments this year, City of Palms, and I think they're playing in the one in Springfield as well. That Innsworth isn't playing in, and Houston High wasn't going to be playing in. So these are opportunities that they'll get playing with East that they wouldn't have got at their previous schools. No doubt. We need to close it out and move on, John. But real quick,
What's your prediction? What's going to happen at the end of the day in this situation with the Tennessee High School Association? They going to let them play region play and play in the state, you think?
My gut feeling says yes, but I also think that might not be the end of it still. So let's put it this way. My gut feeling says they will get to play the entire season, but that still might not be the end of it. They may retroactively, something may happen, but yeah, I think they'll probably be able to get through the season based on.
I'll pose it this way: if Memphis East loses Wiserman and Bounce, okay, and they go on and win the state championship, which they probably still will, even losing those two players, from what I hear. Okay,
right.
Do they allow Bounce and Wiserman to come back and play in the Dix Nationals with them at the end of the season in New York City? Would the state step in at that point?
Well, here's the thing with that. Teams from Tennessee can't compete in the Dix Nationals. There's a rule that they can't compete in postseason tournaments. And that came up last year because East was invited last year after they won the state championship, and they couldn't go. The Tennessee Association doesn't allow any teams, period, to compete in any national tournaments. And actually, they're in the majority in that, which kind of surprised me. 45 states out of the 50, have the same rule. So they're not in the minority on that. But yeah, there's no Dix national tournament for East unless something really strange happens between now and March.
Well, I've seen stranger things happen because we were a state that didn't allow teams to attend Dix, and the media said they started having votes, and we were able to go because people got behind us and said that's something positive for the state, of Georgia, not just Wheeler High School.
And it wasn't just East last year too. The girls team that won the state championship, Murfreesboro Riverdale, they were invited to compete in the girls portion of the national tournament, and they couldn't go either. And I think we've had baseball teams and things of that nature that were invited in past years to compete in similar types of stuff, and they weren't allowed to. So you're right. I don't know what it would take to change the rule. Here is almost the end of the year already, and March will be here before you know it. So I don't know what will happen in terms of that, but as it stands right now, it's not just East, but nobody from Tennessee can go to the Dix tournament. So
well, I'll tell you what, it would work like this. Dix would definitely be sending a charitable donation to the state of Tennessee, and the state of Tennessee would not have to pay for those kids to travel. Because didn't you say that they were a Nike school?
Yeah, they did. And Coach, you make a good point too. Last year, although they didn't play, the team still went to the tournament and saw the sights, saw New York City, saw the games. Did all that. They did everything but play. They actually went up there, but they just didn't play. So you're right. Who knows what'll happen if money starts talking.
Well, money always changes everything. John, we appreciate your time this afternoon. And, John, tell our listeners all across the world how they can find you on the internet, however you want them to find you, and about the Memphis Commercial Appeal.
Yeah, the best place to do it, you can read my stuff online at commercialappeal.com. We always have good stuff, and the website's updated pretty frequently. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can. It's at John Varlas, and that's it, man. That's the best way to reach me, guys. I really appreciate it, Coach. You're a legend, and it's great to talk to you and meet you. And it sounds like you got a good man there with Darian too.
Well, thank you, man. I look forward to meeting you, and I hope you continue to do what you're doing, man. Because, like I say, it's always good to have things in a positive light.
Yeah, we got lots of positive stories here in Memphis, and hopefully we can keep getting the word out on some of that.
Coach, great interview there with John Varlas. Gave us some great insight on Memphis East. What do you think?
It was positive information that I love to hear.
When you say positive information, what do you mean by that, Coach?
Well, they're trying to do good things, and
can I keep it real with you for just a second?
Keep it real.
I think those people in those private schools in Tennessee are pissed off because they're giving the kids a better education. They're giving kids a better academic environment. And the kid basically says, you know what, it's great that I got all this, but I'm going to Memphis to play for Anthony Hardaway. And I think that's why it's in court if you don't know the truth about it. I think if it was the other way around, I don't think Shelby County would be fighting the private school in Nashville to keep the kid from playing. Because I promise you this, the private school in Nashville is all over the state. Because Tennessee's like 3 different states anyway. Maybe 4, really. What you think?
Well, I think that their feelings may be hurt somewhat, but at the end of the day, I think they're really upset because this kid had what you would consider a very good situation, but he in turn felt like he needed to be somewhere else to get better.
You know what I heard? I should have asked John this, Coach. And it's just straight rumor, and I got to qualify it as a rumor. Here's what I hear on the street. That Wiserman, the big kid, I mean, he's the best player on the team. He's a sophomore right now. If one and done is not done by the time he graduates high school, he'll be at Duke, he'll be at Kentucky, he'll be at one of the blue blood schools. If one and done's done, he'll go straight to the NBA probably because he's that good. He was on ESPN the other night and just showed out, and he'll show out at City of Palms. He showed out at City of Palms this past week, but with Memphis East. But I heard how he got to Memphis. Now, he was in the private school in Nashville, learned Mandarin Chinese, as we talked about, by Varlas by the time he was 16 years old, had a great education. But I heard through the grapevine his sister goes to the University of Memphis, and he moved in with her so he could play for Memphis East. What do you think about that?
Well, I hadn't heard that, and I'm
Would
not
it surprise
mad.
you?
I'm not mad if his sister says you can live here.
That's right. You know what's funny about me with Memphis, Tennessee? And you can get. By the way, you said I mentioned Memphis twice before that interview talking about the NBA. But you know what's funny about Memphis? You can go to Facebook and go up there in the search category and hit Memphis basketball. Okay, just hit Memphis basketball. They got thousands of members in their youth league Memphis basketball information on Facebook. I mean, this is 6, 7. I seen them have a bracket of over 128 teams for a tournament in Memphis, Tennessee for youth basketball. Folks don't realize how big youth basketball is in Memphis, Tennessee, do they, Coach? And
they don't realize how big it is all over the country.
Yeah, but you're right. It is a huge part of the culture in Memphis, Tennessee. Would you not agree?
Yes.
And I said this earlier, and folks, you need to go out and watch the basketball tournaments, and we're going to talk to a guy that's got a great tournament coming up in just a second, one of Coach's friends. But some of the best $5 you'll spend is going to a high school game, $10, $12, $20. But go see high school basketball in your area. Go see college basketball in your area. There's some good colleges out there that's playing local basketball. And then there's some major colleges like Duke and Kentucky where you can go spend $120 a seat and probably see it just as good on TV as you can go down to McCavish Pavilion at Georgia Tech and watch it. What do you think, Coach?
I agree. I don't think you'll have a problem getting the seat in any of those games down at Georgia Tech.
I don't know. I was looking on StubHub the other day for the Duke game. They want $120 a ticket right now to go see Duke play at Georgia Tech.
Duke play.
That's because Duke's coming to town. That's right.
It's like Santa Claus, huh?
All righty, Coach. Coach got a great interview coming up with the man that brands himself as an assistant coach. Tell us about him.
Desmond Eastman. Tremendous apps that he has out right now. You need to look at those if you want to know anything about basketball on any level. It's very good. But tremendous knowledge of the game of basketball, and he's worked with numerous pros. I like the guy because he's always committed to getting the kids better, and it's free.
That's right. It's free. Boy, he's going to hate that statement over and over. Free. But no, you think he'd want to go play pro basketball in Memphis, or he'd be like me and say, no, I ain't going there?
I'm sure you can find some talent there.
No doubt. Let's go to an interview with Desmond Eastman on the Carriage Automotive Group Skype line. And welcome back to Real Life Basketball on the Carriage Automotive Group Skype line. Coming to us right now on the line is Coach Ultimate Assistant Coach. I should call him Coach Doug. Desmond Eastman, one of your good friends. Coach Desmond, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm great.
Coach Doug, how long you and Coach Eastman go back?
Oh, at least 25 years.
25. You go back 25 years with everybody, Coach.
That's it.
Hey, Desmond, let's jump right to it, my friend. We appreciate you being an insider and being on Real Life Basketball today. And, man, you've got a lot of things going, not only being an assistant coach, but a trainer and inventor, and we'll get into all your good stuff and your apps in just a little bit. But we want to talk to you about transfers today and what you're seeing in your tournaments and all that kind of good stuff. We want to talk about what you're seeing out there, and we just like to keep it real. You mind doing that with us today, Coach?
Not at all.
Not at all. Hey, you're aware, we just got off the phone with the Memphis Commercial Appeal, and their writer talking about Memphis East and how they're involved in this big court battle up in Tennessee with the Tennessee High School Association. Coach, as an assistant coach, you see it probably more than the head coaches do sometimes. How are transfers at the high school ranks affecting the game as you see it?
I wouldn't say that it's affecting the game. You got to look at it from the perspective of the family who wants the best for their child. And if we could just take it to a whole nother circle, if I wanted my child to be a doctor, I would be sending them to an institution, Emory, or someplace like that has a reputation of producing great doctors. So if I want, if my child is aspiring to be a basketball player, football player, whatever sport it is, I'm going to put them in the best environment possible for them to reach their dreams. Sometimes I have to sacrifice. Sometimes I have to move. Sometimes I have to relocate, and that's part of what comes along with, giving your child the best opportunity possible to reach their dreams.
Well, I totally agree with you, Coach. And I would like to say this right here. We have been discussing transfers in the past, and we really summed it up, or I did, by basically saying that the majority of the better programs, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, or hockey, it doesn't really matter, someone has moved into that area to make those teams better.
Yeah, I agree. Basketball, it seems like it's a bigger impact on the transfers because the talent level of the player can really change the scope of a game of that team. And sometimes that one player will attract other players to come play with them. So, you can put a spotlight on basketball, but like you said, it started other places, and there are rules in place to govern and offset that. And my opinion is, if these families move within the rules that are given to them, then why is it a problem? Why do people complain?
Hey, once again, Coach, I strongly agree. Let me move forward into another area, like you say, in this whole mixture of things. Do you feel like the shoe companies, like, for example, we're just using these names for example, of course, that would be Nike, Adidas, Reebok, Under Armour. Do you think they have a major influence on where these kids attend high school and then college?
No, I don't think they have a major influence. I think they have a major interest. There's a difference between influence and interest. And influence is they're coercing them into making these decisions and going these places. Interest is, I want to see the people that I support do well. I want to see the kids that are prominent in my gear, in my shoes. What we fail to realize, for them, it's a business. It's marketing. And the best marketing is not to put a shoe on Kobe Bryant, James Harden, or Chris Paul, because the kids at the end of the day don't emulate them. The kids are going to emulate the other kids that are their age, that are in their circle, that are successful. So as opposed to putting a shoe on Kobe Bryant, I'll put a shoe on Zion Williamson. And he has a bigger impact than Kobe Bryant, especially on a grassroots level, because all of the kids emulate him because they see his success.
Makes perfectly good sense to me. So let me ask you this, talking about transfers. Who is leading the transfers? Is it the parents, the AAU coaches, the high school coaches, or is it college coaches? Who's leading the transfers when it comes down to these high school students? Who would you say? Because let's face it, a lot of these parents step into a world that they don't even know exists. All of a sudden they realize, hey, my 13-year-old's got God-given ability. Now they start investigating what's best. Who's telling them this stuff, where to go and what to do?
Well, they gather the information. Each situation is different. You're going to have parents to fact find and gather information from different sources. At the end of the day, the responsibility falls on the parents because they're the ones that are the decision makers. So they're the ones that are leading, that are in charge, because, you can have a talented athlete, and if you decide not to move, then what? But if you do decide to move, you want to make sure it's the best situation. So at the end of the day, the responsibility and all of the power falls on the parents. They're the ones that makes the decision and keeps this thing going.
I agree. Once again.
Man, you agree with everything the man got to say.
I mean, I know him like a book. But
You know
hey,
what I
Coach, here's one thing that's jumping out there all over the country right now. Tell us your insight as far as how you look at this situation with Penny Hardaway being associated with his AAU program. At the same time, he's coaching a team that's ranked number 1 in the country. A public school. Now, here's the thing, Des. The thing about that really is something crazy. How about if he wasn't ranked number 1 in the country and the kids wanted to go to his school? I don't think he would be getting as much publicity. But what's blowing up with him is his name, number 1, the team being ranked number 1 in the country, that'd be number 2. And number 3 is, if his name wasn't Penny and it was like Timmy Smith or something like that, it wouldn't be a problem.
Well, for me, if my son has, an opportunity to play for a Penny Hardaway, I'm going to let him play for him. And the reason being is not only Penny, but anybody that has the knowledge to help him achieve his goal or his dream. Who else can help teach a kid to become a pro than someone who has already walked that path? So let's not blame Penny for being successful and then coming back and using his knowledge and his prominent status to build his reputation within a sport that he's been in for over 30 years. Let's not punish him for being successful. Let's try to help him continue the success that he has, and maybe that'll influence other athletes can come back and do the same thing, and that will build up the sport in a whole, in a sense. I think it's just, for me, I think it's the lazy people who don't want to invest time, energy into becoming better at their craft. So what they're going to say is, you know what, instead of, me going out and going to coaches' clinics, me going out and studying, going out. Every high school coach is well accepted at university practices, at pro practices. I've been to pro practices, all type of college practices, and the doors are always open for high school coaches, AAU coaches to come in and learn. But our coaches don't take advantage of these opportunities, but then they complain when other people do, and they help and get these players because they just know more about the sport. They have a better platform to make these kids successful.
We're on the Skype Carriage Automotive Group line with assistant coach extraordinaire Desmond Eastman. Desmond has been a coach all across the country, trainer to some of the best players in the country, also inventor of the dribble bridge and the apps, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But, Coach, as we get back and we talk about these pro players and all that, do folks like Penny Hardaway in his AAU program, Chris Paul, his AAU program, and others, do they have an unfair advantage over high school and AAU players, AAU coaches, not players? Do they have an unfair advantage when it comes to, I don't want to say recruiting, but I'll say the word recruiting, getting these kids to come play for them opposed to other folks because they were a professional athlete? Does that give them an unfair advantage than a regular high school coach?
It's not an unfair advantage. It is an advantage, but there's nothing unfair about it because they work to become who they are. You know what I mean? It's no different if if Boyle from Mount Verd comes knocking at your door, or St. Anthony's coach Hurley comes knocking at your door. You know what I mean? Those coaches have put in time. They have, you know what I mean, invested time, energy, and they have been successful. So why do we chastise them for coming with the reputation that they have of being good, being successful, when, you know what I mean, it's the lay of the land?
If we want to be real and just talk about it real, Morgan Wooten was doing it at DeMatha 25 years ago before it was ever popular, was he not?
And the only thing that made it popular now or has brought it to light is social media. But why would it be an unfair advantage? You know what I mean? That's just the same thing as in business. You know what I mean? You can have the same advantages in business as a business owner, and it's not a problem. So why is it a problem for a coach to be successful and show up and have done so much in the sport, and now cannot continue to be who they are because of the success that they've had?
You've worked with pro players, you've worked with college players, you've worked with high school players that have gone on to be drafted. Last week, Jerry Meyer, why do I keep calling him Jerry Rankin? Jerry Meyer with 247 Sports insinuated that he felt before too much longer many kids would go straight from high school to the NBA G League, okay? Do you see this happening, Coach? And what kind of timetable do you foresee this happening if you do see it happening?
If I don't see the G League. If they go to the G League, extenuating circumstances, I don't see it just being a rush for players to go to the G League. I think once the rule changes, where they can go straight out of high school to the pros, what they'll do is they'll get drafted and be on a two-way contract and be assigned to the G League. I see that happening more so than a player just making a decision to say, you know what, I'm going to forego college and go to the G League, because that'll be a harder process for them to get drafted and be in a position to be successful, as opposed to just going to college for the 1 year.
No doubt. You know, a lot of people are in fear that G League, we've heard that from more than one occasions, that there's going to be kids that don't want to go to college. You know, think about the kid that played over in Australia for a year, or the kid that's the kids that don't want to go to college and play. Coach, what do you think about that, Coach Doug? Do you see the G League getting kids straight out of high school? Have you ever had – let me ask you this, Coach. I'll ask both of you this because you've dealt with AAU and high school coaches for years, both of you. Have you ever saw a kid that would have benefited from going to, let's call the G League a vocational program, that would have benefited going to the G League and then possibly going to Europe to play or going in the NBA to play, opposed to going to college and playing for a year or two and then leaving to go to one of those folks? Because let's face it, there's a lot of people that go to college that stay there a year or two, leave, transfer, whatever, then end up playing in Europe, Japan, Israel, wherever. Coach, can y'all think of any kids that, I mean, I don't want you to mention them by name, but Coach Doug, can you think of any kids that would have benefited from something like that?
Well, let me say this first of all. I think there are kids out there, and I personally know kids that could have been drafted out of high school, okay?
Yeah.
So the issue then becomes, where do you think they would be drafted?
Right.
So I thought it was always beneficial for us if we had a kid of that caliber to just let him wait 1 year, mature, and then you can see that they went up higher in the draft. For example, if I had two kids, or we have had two kids to be drafted top 3 in the NBA draft,
right,
the only place they could have went better than that would be 1 or 2.
Right.
So, hell, it didn't hurt them at all.
Did he do the right thing, or should he went to college? What's your thought?
Definitely the right thing. Definitely the right thing. The game is different between college and the pros, and some kids may not be able to handle college and may be able to flourish in the pros. And there's some kids that need to go to college just to mature. Every situation is different, but those guys that have gone to from high school to the pros, for the majority of them, have made great decisions.
Well, I mean, baseball's been doing it for how long? Since the beginning of time. I mean, it's been minor leagues. It's, the best players. You don't ever see the best players in baseball playing in college baseball. Cody's 99 times true. I mean, there's always yeah. So my thought is, if the NBA would develop its G League, it'd put a real hurting on there. Coach Desmond, give us a rundown of what Coach Desmond's into, the Tournament of Champions, and everything else in your world going out, and how people can get a hold of you, find out more information about the Ultimate Assistant Coach Desmond Eastman, and all your info.
Right now, we have a couple of components going on. First, we have the Ultimate Assistant Coach, the Coach ABC app, and this app is developed with plays, drills, coaches clinics, anything that you can find in basketball or you want to know or you want to learn. We have the likes of Rick Pitino on there, Stan Van Gundy. We have, drills from different pro players, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Lorenzo Brown, Jarrett Jack, Josh Smith, J.J. Hickson, Jaylen Brown. This app you can find on any platform, any mobile device. You can go on Apple or Google Play and just search Assistant Basketball Coach. It's free to download, and once you download it, there are some in-app purchases, but it's very inexpensive, and it's a great tool to have. Secondly, we have the Dribble Bridge, which is a great component that we developed to help the basketball players stay low with a change of direction while handling the basketball. And the concept is pretty much two cones, PVC piping over it, and they have to use a change of directions under the cone. This is a great tool that has been taken off. You can find that at dribblebridge.com. Social media for that is at dribblebridge. And also, finally, we have the Tournament of Champions, which is one of the hottest post-Christmas tournaments in the country. This year we have 34 teams. We have 3 teams in the top 20 in the country. We have 14 top 100 players. We have the number 1 player as a sophomore in Isaiah Todd from John Marshall. We have Miami Christian coming in. We have McKeachin. We have Lower Richland coming in from South Carolina with Christian Brown. We have out of Georgia, we have 7 of the top 10 teams in each classification. So it's going to be some exciting basketball. You have Grayson, which is one of the top teams now, Wheeler, Pebblebrook. You have Langston Hughes with Landers Noley. It's going to be a great, great tournament held at Wheeler High School, and that will be December 27th to the 30th. It's a $12 all-day pass. You have 16 games a day. You can come and go as you please, 2 gyms. We will be live on V103 and SUV TV.
Sounds great. To rehash a couple of things, G, Des, I want to tell the people to listen to this right here. You're one of the best trainers in the country. And I think people don't understand how important that is to have your fundamentals in the sound, very sound, and you've done that well. But I got to tell the people like this. I don't know if you still function in this area, but he was one of the cheapest people we could find because he didn't charge us anything. But I do want to tell you this.
That's what they always want to promote, that you cheap. Ain't that right, Coach?
But it's the best. But I'm going to say this right here. The kids that came out of our program, as far as Sharif Abdul-Rahim, J.J. Hickson, Jamario Davidson, DeQuan Jones, Jaylen Brown, Lorenzo Brown, Daniel Gittins, and E.J. Montgomery, most of those kids are bigs. And to say this, most of those kids went on to the NBA, are on their way to the NBA. And people need to recognize that aspect. That app that you're talking about, basketball, anybody that wants to know anything about basketball whatsoever, it's an encyclopedia on basketball. Then if you look at the Tournament of Champions with all the best teams in Georgia, I think the only one you don't have on there is Norcross. But everybody else is really good and has the potential to be a state champion this year. And most importantly, man, we want to thank you for coming on and working with us. We will talk to you in the future again. How about that?
No, that's great. You got a great platform here. I appreciate you having me on. And I'm looking forward to you guys. Maybe you can come cover the Tournament of Champions live, do a show from there. It'd be great. It's a great atmosphere. We're going to have about 2,000 people in the stands each night. So it's great for basketball. Great time in Georgia.
Well, we'll do it, Coach, and appreciate your time, my friend, and we'll talk to you soon. That's been Assistant Coach Extraordinary Desmond Eastman on the Carriage Automotive Group line.
I just want to say, hey, thanks again to Desmond Eastman for coming on and talking with us today. We had a lot of fun, great interview. We talked about his apps as far as anything related to basketball. You can find it on his apps. We talked about the Dribble Bridge. We also have a big tournament coming to Wheeler High School, a Tournament of Champions. And go out and see some good games. And
no doubt, Desmond's trained some good folks too, hasn't he?
Oh yeah. He's trained several pros. At least those kids that came out of my program benefited from having him there. And like I say, go if you want to talk about those kids. You got Jalen Brown, you got Sharif Abdur-Rahim, you got DeQuan Jones, Jamario Davidson, to name a few, and go out and see the tournament, like I said before. Go out and see the house that Doug built.
Go see the house, Doug. But you reckon they'll ever put your name on the floor like he did Coach K and Duke?
Well, it's already on top of the building. Hopefully they won't take it off.
You never know, Coach. You go to another school close and just start whooping them, they might take your name off.
No, I don't think they're going to let me do that.
I think after a couple of weeks ago when I was over there, they might want you back.
Well, I wish him nothing but success.
They got a good coach over there. Good coach over there. Maybe he can get him some of them African kids that he had over at Green Forest. What do you think?
Hey, I'm behind him.
That's right. You always want to be a winner. If you're a Wildcat, you bleed navy blue. Coach Doug does. So anyway, great interview with Desmond. Great information with Desmond. Y'all was giving me a hard time a while ago for the NBA teams I wouldn't want to play with. And I was talking about I wouldn't want to play for Memphis. I wouldn't want to play for Memphis. I wouldn't want to play for Milwaukee. I wouldn't want to play for Minnesota. I wouldn't want to play for Utah and probably Portland. Mm-hmm. But anywhere else, I'd go. Is there any of them cities you wouldn't want to play for?
Well, Utah.
I'd take a check from any of them. Don't get me wrong. It's better than the check we getting here today, ain't it?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Yeah. I would have a hard time, I guess, playing in Utah. But like I said, if the money's right, I'm there.
Let me ask you this. This is straight up, all right? The team's already gone, so we can talk bad about the city, okay? When Sharif got drafted and y'all went to Vancouver, did he look around and say, where the hell am I at?
No, we all looked around and said, where the hell am I at? But the people are extremely nice there.
Great folks.
Yeah, great facilities they had. Like I say, they had a lot of support, but just basically not enough. They felt that's why it was time to move. But I love the area.
Speaking of Vancouver, did you ever get a chance to meet with Big Country?
Yeah. Big Country was a good guy. Big Country had some shoes from like the Bunny Rabbit on Warner Brothers or something like that.
Big Country Bryant Reeves. Yes. I remember when he took Oklahoma State to the Final Four. He just come out there looking like just some rogue boxer. Did he not? Just some bruise. I wouldn't have wanted to get in a fight with him, would you?
Nah, but I'm telling you, he used the game to the best of his ability.
Yeah.
And he didn't let the game use him.
He got a check and went home. Probably owns a big ranch somewhere over in Oklahoma right now. What do you think?
Most definitely. Probably weighing about 350.
You think he's weighing 350?
Hey, and enjoying life.
We need to get some of these old players one of these days on. Yeah. What do you think?
I'd love to do that.
We'll get some old NBA players on. Hey, Coach, Merry Christmas. Thank you for doing the show with us. And we appreciate it. It's been fun. This is our seventh, eighth show, something like that. And they said if you don't have a number of listeners, Cody, you need to quit. Are we past the number of listeners where we need to quit, or do we need to keep going, Coach? Keep it going and keep it rolling. And, we picked these Christmas games again. Turn the NBA on. By the time you've heard this show, the games may be over. But anyway, I just want y'all to remember I picked the Knicks. Oh, we didn't pick Golden State and Cleveland, the marquee game of the day. So, Cody, I'm going to start with you since you always talking pro. Golden State and Cleveland on Christmas Day.
Cleveland ain't lost in a while. I'm going to go Cleveland this year.
What do you think, Coach?
Golden State.
I'm going to say this right here.
I'm going to regret my pick.
You are going to regret your pick. You're going to regret it. Any pro team that loses to the Atlanta Hawks I ain't picking them. The only thing, and let me say this, Cleveland lost to the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks may have 2 players that could play for another NBA team in America right now. That's how it's awful to say about our team like that, ain't it, Coach?
Well, it is, but at the same time, some people would have a hard time trying to name 4 of the players on the team.
I couldn't name 2, and I do a basketball show.
Yeah, well, I'm with you.
I mean, you've been coaching basketball 25 years, and you can't name 2.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, if that check was right, I'd be sitting on the bench having fun, okay?
I would, too. I'd be flying around in a plane with them, having a good time. Maybe we need to get us some press credentials to go down there and watch some games. What do you think?
Hey, we can get by. We can sit on the bench,
We
maybe.
can sit on the bench, maybe sit there on the front row. You know, who knows? Maybe since we've been doing this show and we got thousands of listeners, they will do like they do at the Knicks game and give the announcer a list of the celebrities there at the game. And since we are basketball celebrities now, I mean, maybe we would get them seats courtside. What do you think?
Hey, we can make it happen.
I went down there. You know what? Last time I went to a Hawks game, you're going to laugh at this. Last time I went to a Hawks game was last year. All right. And I can go down there anytime I want to, just like you can, Coach. I mean, you went down there to see Boston play, and you've been down there probably a couple more times this year. But last time I went to see was last year when Kobe came to town with the Lakers. All right.
Yeah.
Man, it looked like a who's who on the sidelines that night when Kobe was in town. And he didn't go out there and do nothing but throw up a bunch of 3-pointers from half court that night. He didn't even want to play. He just wanted to. But you know what? I got to see the legend play, so that was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun. Hey, as always, Merry Christmas. And thank you for listening. Go back and listen to some of our old shows. Got some great folks like Stacey Davis giving us some insight. Some great folks like Amir Abdul-Rahim, the assistant coach with Texas A&M. Jerry Myers with 247 Sports, giving us some great insights. On and on and on. And, Coach, again, Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to Cody. And thank you guys for being a part of Real Life Basketball. We're going to do a New Year's show coming up. And then we'll start 2018 with a bang. What do you think, Coach?
I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Be a lot of fun.
Let me just share one thing with you. I just looked over here in the book I was reading.
Yeah.
I guess that's rare, but whatever. I'm reading it. It says, one little quote was, more money, more problems. And then it comes back and says, no, more money, more options.
There you go.
Okay.
Lord, I thought he's going to quote the Bible. What'd you think, Cody? It being Christmas.
Hey, so we might need to find it.
That's right. Hey, I'm going to close it out with what my granny said. My granny always said this: there's a reason for the season. Let's remember that. Keep the faith. Keep number one. And have fun playing basketball. Thanks for listening to Real Life Basketball on the BG Podcast Network.
Thank you.